Hi everyone, so I'm Akriti Kapoor and I helped develop this tool called MindJig for your Sci AO2 class. Just to give you a little bit of a background as well, I am a student and I research pedagogy or educational psychology here with Steve at UTSC. And part of my research here was to develop this tool for your class and to see how, I guess, it changes your educational experience and adds new skills to the program. But I guess just a little bit of a overarching philosophy behind why all of a sudden we're making you do a totally new assignment is that, as Steve has repeatedly mentioned in the course, one of our biggest goals in this class, more than teaching you about introductory psychology, the content of the course, is to also teach you skills that you can actually use in your everyday life. What you know is really important, but what's more important is what you can do with what you know. And so through assignments like MTuner, Peer Scholar, and Digital Lab Code last semester, for those of you who used it, we try to instill skills like critical thinking and even critical writing. But while all of these assignments foster critical thinking and critical writing, we now want to teach you how to think critically in the first place. This is a challenging skill, and oftentimes students are really confused about what exactly it means to think critically. So through MindJig, we will be walking you through a process where you will learn how to practice these very skills, and how to develop an idea or a thesis, and walk through this entire process where you learn to make it more analytical. So to log in, first you will go to a site called www.mindjig.ca. All details will be posted on Blackboard, and your username will be your Torrid and your password will be your student number. On Monday, so March 23rd, you will have to log in during one of the 6 assigned time slots on Blackboard. Don't log in on all 6 slots, just log in on one of the 6 slots. And once you sign in, it will prompt you to enter a nickname. So you can just enter whatever nickname you want here. Just some community guidelines. Don't enter your full name. We don't want people to know who you are. We want to maintain anonymity, kind of like Peer Scholar. But also don't use something inappropriate. And what's going to happen then is that a lot of students will be logging on at the same time, and it will take you to a screen called like waiting to be assigned a group. So the software will do some of its technical magic and place you into a group of 4 or 5 depending on how many people log on at that time. After you're placed in a group, you will be taken to the first step called notice and focus. Now in this phase you'll be working with a group, but for the time being, your group is just going to be away and doing their own thing. So right now, you're in a group, but you're pretending they're away for a bit. And so what's going to happen is you're going to get to see a video, and the other half of your group will be seeing a different video. The overarching topic will be the same for both videos, but each video will offering a different perspective on this topic. Your job is to watch this video and make as many observations as you can about it in this yellow white box right over here. You can type your observations here, but don't analyze anything just yet. Make random notes about everything you see, from content to argument to visuals and even the sound of the video. Good analysis starts with good observation skills, and we're trying to teach you to learn how to build and develop these observation skills. So Isaac Newton, for example, didn't just one day wake up and say, I'm going to write a paper on gravity today. No, he kept his eyes peeled and he was observant of the world around him. And when he noticed the apple falling on his head, he realized how everything always falls down on the ground. In this moment, he started focusing his ideas and his observations, and he participated in this process of notice and focus, and that allowed him to get to a really new and unique thesis, which was the discovery of gravity, and that has obviously changed the scientific community. So we want you to learn these similar skills. Before you start developing a thesis for a project, we want you to teach you how to analyze your data first. In high school, you're taught to first come up with a thesis, and then find evidence to back that thesis up. But new discoveries and innovations, as I just mentioned with the Newton example, can't come or happen with preconceived theses. So we want you to adopt an opposite approach where you look at your evidence first and then use it to come up with a thesis. I will post a handout on Blackboard with more details about some effective strategies you can use to, I guess, developing a good thesis and developing good observation skills. But I'll briefly go over them right now. So, for the noticing phase or the noticing stage, one of the things I'm going to tell you is, first of all, notice everything and anything. Look at what the presenters are saying. Pay close attention to their arguments, their counter arguments, and pay attention to how they're speaking. Sometimes the way a presenter speaks can affect the strength of their argument or what the content of their argument even. So like right now I'm kind of giving this like academic lecture style talk, but if I was a party I would be just like, what up dude? That totally changes what my content of my speech, and also the meaning that you perceive based on the way I'm speaking. So pay attention to things like that, and also even pay attention to irrelevant details like the sound of the video, the visual aesthetics, like the colors, for example. Does it use a lot of bright colors? Does it use a lot of dark colors? Maybe that means something. How things are framed, what is being cut off, what is not being cut off, what the camera is paying attention to. This seems like irrelevant, and maybe you won't even end up using these observations later on, but the point is that to be able to discover a new and unique idea, you have to first train your eye to notice things you wouldn't notice in the first look. So now, just to walk you through an example, if you look through this poster of, it's a DVD cover actually for the TV show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So say if this is kind of my assignment and I have to analyze this and I'm practicing notice and focus. If I'm to notice this, I see there's a yellow background, everyone has yellow hair, and it's not even blonde, it's just like really yellow. Everyone's wearing yellow clothing. The text is white, but it looks kind of like this sun-like halo that's shining from the background. The guy has yellow glasses. There's 4 men, 1 female. Everyone's Caucasian. There's only 1 senior. So I could go on and on here, but you see what I mean about making observations. In this list I just went through right now, I wasn't really making sense of my observations. I was just randomly listing everything I saw. I wasn't interpreting anything yet, and that's kind of what we want you to do when you watch your videos. When you have this entire list of things you see, click Save, and then you will be taken to this phase right here, which is your thesis and evidence phase. And what you have to do is take your random list of observations, which will still be available for you to see in this right-hand box right over here, and focus them to create a thesis. And then back this thesis up with 1 evidence point. Here you will only have 250 characters to write the thesis and the evidence point. And there's a specific reason for that. We want you to come up with 1 focalized idea instead of a really long-winded, vague point. Also at the top of the screen, note that for every stage there is a timer. Pay attention to this timer because if it runs out, it will automatically take you to the next stage. Secondly, even if you're done your answers, you can't proceed to the next stage until you're done this timer right here. But also, there are going to be instructions in this ribbon at the top here for every stage. And more so, you'll have this show button, and if you click that show button, it will take you to a page where you can look at what your thesis is and your evidence is. And that will be there for the rest of the assignment. So moving forwards, so say for example, if we're going back to our Always Sunny in Philadelphia example, and now I have to take my observations and develop a thesis. Now, my thesis, what you also want to do is make sure that it relates to this overarching idea. So say for example, the overarching idea for the Always Sunny in Philadelphia topic was subliminal advertising. Not sure if you have reached this chapter in your lectures yet, but it is a concept you learn in Intro Psych. And so say 1 thesis related to subliminal advertising could be that this poster is subtly highlighting associations with sunny images to emphasize how it's always sunny in Philadelphia. The prevalence of yellow everywhere, the sunshine like halo behind the letters. Everything yellow is kind of bringing back this idea of it's sunny everywhere in this poster, and that's similar to, and it's bringing back to this idea of it's always sunny in Philadelphia. It's clever marketing right there. And so you're going to take something like that, and that could be one of your thesis points, and then you just back it up with one evidence, and there you go, you're done this phase. But you can also, there's a lot of strategies you can use to focus your ideas. Some good ones are that look for patterns in your observations, kind of like we did in our sunny example. We noticed there was yellow everywhere, and that helped us get to our thesis, which is that all the yellow is trying to bring back this idea of it's always being sunny in Philadelphia. But also avoid generalizations. Be skeptical, don't ever accept what you see in its entirety without questioning its validity. Think of it like when your crush texts you and you obsess over what it would mean. He texted me a heart emoji. Does it mean he likes me? Does he mean he likes me as a friend? Was the emoji a typo? So things like that. You already have these analytical skills. Now you just have to take them and try and apply them to your assignments and your everyday life. But also avoid offering judgment. Instead, try to uncover what the work is saying. Read between the lines. Instead of looking for black and whites, versus, i.e. something is good versus bad, look for the shades of gray. And also, it's important to remember it's okay to not know. So if your overall topic is discussing a social issue, which it will be next week in your assignment, you don't have to be able to offer a solution to this problem. Nobody has all the answers to the world's biggest problems. Climate change, for example, the best of scientists haven't been able to figure out a solution to this. So we just want you to analyze one specific aspect of the problem. Don't give us blacks and whites. Don't try and solve everything, because we can't. But an important thing to also remember is that don't overanalyze your data. Don't overkill. If you can't back it up with evidence, then leave it. Then come up with a different thesis. So if you follow all of these steps effectively, you shouldn't have any trouble writing a good thesis. A good thesis ultimately looks at the data, which in this case is your video, and tries to uncover something new about what it is saying. It should ultimately be asking or answering the inevitable so what question. Why should we care about your idea? Why is it important? And so keep these things in mind when you're trying to develop your thesis. But also remember that a thesis is not a topic. A topic is broad. A thesis is narrowed down to a specific idea. A thesis takes a definitive stand against a topic. It is essentially something that can be argued against. But a thesis should also be something that someone wants to argue against. You can technically argue against the statement, junk food is healthy for you. But in reality, how many people will actually stand up there and say, yeah, junk food is healthy for you? So, think about these things when you're developing your thesis. Also note, a good thesis includes why. It takes a stand, but it also includes the most important reasons, A thesis presents your well-thought theory on the topic and how it works in a given video. And most importantly, and I've said this before, is don't make your evidence fit the thesis, but make the thesis fit the evidence. If you can't back it up, don't try fishing for evidence points. Make sure you have enough evidence for it. Something I do want to point out here, though, is that you can go back to see your video for a second time if you want in this phase. But keep an eye on this timer, because when you go back, the timer won't restart and it'll just keep going. So once you do all of this, you'll be done this first phase. You watch a video, you observe it, then you focus your observations, you write a thesis, you write an evidence point, and you click proceed. And now is where the fun starts. You get to the next stage, which is called discuss and debate. And here you get to meet your group and participate in a live chat form of sorts. So kind of like an online tutorial. That's what you can really think of this phase as. On your page, you will be able to see the thesis and evidence points of each of your peers. So in these boxes right here, it's kind of like a chat bubble. It'll tell you each peer's nickname, and it'll tell you their thesis and evidence point. What you have to do is read each peer's thesis and evidence point and challenge it by offering a counter argument. When you counter argue, you essentially consider a possible argument against their thesis or some aspect of its reasoning. This will help your peers address the complexities of the topic and make their thesis more nuanced. You're not trying to edit their theses. You're not trying to find grammatical errors here. Don't pull up your scholar here. But instead, what you have to do is then try and help them make their claims more stronger. So say, for example, I argue Elvis is a good singer because he had a huge fan following. Steve might counter-argue and say, well, this claim doesn't tell us why he's a good singer. Many celebrities have large fan followings, but what musical qualities makes Elvis a good singer? So that's kind of the reasoning we're looking for in the counter-argument phase. But I've also been asked this question, some students who tested this tool, they asked me as well, what if your peer's thesis is great? How do we counter-argue it then? Well, something I want to say is that no thesis is ever perfect. No matter, even if you're a professor at the best university in the world, your thesis can still be improved. That's what the academic process is all about. That's what critical thinking is all about. So an example I would like to give for this is that, so say for example, my original Elvis thesis was a lot stronger. If I ended up saying instead was that Elvis is a good singer because of his versatility. He excels in a variety of genres like pop, blues, and gospel. This makes my thesis so much better than the original one. But Steve can still sit there and counter-argue it by saying something like, while Presley's ability to excel in a multitude of genres signifies his talent as a musician, this thesis still does not address what aspects of Presley's vocal abilities makes him a good singer. So there's always something that can be improved. Once you submit these counter-arguments, what's going to happen is that your peers will also be counter-arguing your thesis. And so in the next stage, you will receive all that counter-arguments that your peers have offered for you. And what you now have to do is defend yourself by giving a rebuttal to each of your peers. Now, a rebuttal is ultimately a reply to the counter-argument. A good rebuttal accepts the counter-argument, but not completely. If you need to accept the counter-argument completely, you need a new thesis, which may or may not be a bad thing. You might as well learn early on that your thesis is really bad and can be improved than at the end of the process, and that's exactly what we're trying to show you here. But ultimately, what you should do if your thesis is good and your counter-argument's good, is that you take the good points of the counter-arguments you received and you use them to make your thesis stronger, and then take the bad ones and try and prove why you're not using them. Again, so I'm going to give you an example is, if my thesis is Disney movies foster unrealistic romantic ideals among children, and a counter-argument somebody sends me is that, well, that's true, but movies like Frozen question the idea of love at first sight, and they're challenging traditional Disney ideals. You may rebut this counter-argument by saying something like, while movies like Frozen challenge traditional Disney ideals, they still continue equating the idea of love with princesses and royal idealism, which in itself is an unrealistic romantic ideal. So here you're agreeing with part of the argument. You agree that movies like Frozen challenge Disney ideals, but you don't agree with the latter half of that counter-argument received. So here you're defending it, and in this process you make your original thesis so much more stronger than we started off as. Once you've rebutted all the claims you've received, you will then get a chance to participate in a free debate of sorts. So if you have any more questions or any points you want to discuss, this is your chance. Think of it like a Facebook or MSN chat of sorts. Not sure if you all remember MSN. I'm still confused who the last generation to use MSN was. It slowly died. But yeah, once again, some community guidelines I want to, emphasize here is that don't ask people what their names are or other personal information. Make sure your chat is assignment related, and we will flag students who don't follow community guidelines, but your peers will also be filling out a peer evaluation in the end. So if you are just goofing off the entire time, we'll know, and then you're not going to get more. So just make sure you're following your guidelines. When you're done all of this debating, you would then read your old thesis. So it'll take you a page like this where it'll tell you what your thesis was. I didn't submit a thesis, so it's not showing me anything, but and what you have to do is rate your thesis, but then enter a revised thesis. And again, you can at any time click this show button and it will show you what your old thesis was or evidence was and your debate was, and you can navigate through that. And after you're done phase one. So that's your phase one entirely. But a couple of, I guess, I'll address a couple of frequently asked questions we've received for this assignment is, first of all, do you have to agree with your video in your thesis? And the answer is no. So you're not trying to summarize what the presenter said in your video. You're offering an interpretation of the video. And if you want to disagree with what the presenter said, by all means, go ahead and do that. But if you do disagree with what your video is saying, make sure you can back it up. That's all we're asking. Make sure your thesis can be backed up with good evidence points. Second question that we received regarding this assignment was that if half your group watches a different video, how will they know what your thesis is talking about, and what I want to have to say to that is that this is the part of the challenge of the assignment. Even though half the class has a different video, both videos will be on one overarching topic. So make sure in your thesis you're making it clear what your stance is on this overarching topic. Ideally, someone who has never watched your video should be able to understand your thesis. But if 1% things are still super unclear, that's when you can free chat. That's where your little chat feature is there for. And so I guess just in summary, what you're going to be doing is you're going to watch a video, you're going to observe it, you're going to focus it, and you're going to come up with a thesis and evidence. Then you're going to debate with your peers. After you're done the debate, you're going to rate your old thesis and improve it, and then you're done this phase. If you have any questions, feel free to email the course email. Do it now. If you have any questions, read the Blackboard page, but make sure you do it early. Don't leave it for the last minute. I know it's a busy time of the year, but the only thing is, this assignment, unlike all of your other ones, once you start, you have to finish it in one sitting, and you won't get a second chance to do it. So if you're confused about something, make sure you get all those questions and queries out of the way first. And that's that. So thank you very much, and good luck with the assignment.